Well, ladies and gentlemen, the time has finally arrived for me to finally cue up the violins for James Alex Fields Jr. Now, I have talked about this individual vastly for the last 2 years, and now the time is finally arrived where we can finally close the chapter on this story. So it has just come out that James Alex Fields has been sentenced to not one, but 2 life sentences in jail with no possibility of parole on any of those life sentences. One of them is just a life sentence, and the other one is 419 years on a federal hate crime charges. Now I'm gonna derive a little bit from this. This is exactly why they are trying to save Sean Urbanski, because you see what he's getting for this hate crime charge. Sean Urbanski could look at something like that as well. Maybe not as much because his wasn't as extreme, and not to say it wasn't as extreme, but it was because someone did die. But now you see why they're trying to get him detached, I should say, from the hate crime charge, because you see what happened with Dylan Rufus Rowe. He's currently on death row, and hate crime charges were attached to him as well. So now you're starting to get how serious these hate crime charges actually are. But back to this piece of crap right here, and I use this picture because this is the most recent picture of him. I got tired of looking at the other one. I'm tired of looking at this one, to be honest, as well. But for the occasion, and since we won't be here very long, and hopefully this is the last time we'll ever talk about him, unless something drastic happens to him behind bars, then we'll be back to cue up the violins again. But it says, an avowed white supremacist was sentenced to life plus 419 years on federal hate crime charges Monday for deliberately driving his car into an anti-racism protesters during a white nationalist rally in Virginia. James Alex Fields Jr., age 22, received the sentence for killing 1 person and injuring dozens during the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville on August 12, 2017. Fields was sentenced last month to life in prison on 29 federal hate crime charges. 29. I bet he wishes he didn't take that drive from Ohio to Charlottesville that day now. Judge Richard Moore followed a state jury recommendation handing down the sentence. Under state law, he was allowed to go lower than the recommendation, but not higher. The state sentence is mainly symbolic given his previous sentence on the federal charges. For his purposes, he has 1 life to give, so this is largely academic exercise, noted Jonathan Turley, a law professor at George Washington University. Fields, an avowed white supremacist who kept a photo of Adolf Hitler on his bedside table, drove from his home in Maumee, Ohio to attend the rally, which drew hundreds of white nationalists to Charlottesville to protest the planned removal of a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The event also drew counter-protesters who demonstrated against the white nationalists. Violent skirmishes between the two sides prompted police to declare an unlawful assembly and to order the groups to disband before the rally could ever begin. Later that day, Fields plowed his car into a crowd of counter-protesters, killing Heather Heyer, age 32, and injuring more than 24 others. Last month, Fields admitted to deliberately driving his car into counter-protesters who showed up to demonstrate against the white nationalists. Now, mind you, that is the very first time that he publicly, at least to the masses, admitted his role, admitted what he did. Now, mind you, what he did happened back in 2017. We're actually coming up on 2 years since that happened. But he finally admitted it almost 2 years later. That, if that's not hatred, I don't know what is. And the only reason he's admitted is because he wanted some kind of sympathy. Up until that point, he felt no remorse. I think I've said that in a couple of my videos in the past talking about him. Now, the last video I did about him, his team thought they were going to get a reduction in the sentence. They brought it down some, and that's only because the judge couldn't go any higher. It's real funny when you actually think about it, when you put it into perspective. It says his comment came after more than a dozen survivors and witnesses delivered emotional testimonies about the physical and psychological wounds they received. Heyer's mother, Susan Bro, was one of the people to speak. She says, I never wished for the death penalty and still don't, bro said. I would like to see him change in time from a white supremacist to someone who helps bring others away from white supremacy. Well, to Heather Heyer's mother, I hate to say it, but that'll never happen. He only feels remorse because his life is pretty much done. And mind you, he's only 22. He was, 20 when he did this? Barely out of his teens and had that much hate in his heart. Well, I hope he enjoys that 3 hots in a cot, because that's exactly what he is going to get for the rest of his life. Finally, the chapter is done with this story. No more will I have to, hopefully not ever, address this again. And to him, I feel absolutely nothing. I feel absolutely nothing. I just don't. Like, did he really? I wanted to know, he probably really thought he was going to come out of this unscathed. I bet he really did. His arrogance got the best of him, but it's Virginia after all. I wonder if he thinks Donald Trump is going to give him some kind of a pardon, but then again, I doubt it. It is what it is. All well that ends well, I guess. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you in the next one.